This is Diana Sullivan in Austin, Texas, and in this video I'm going to show how to do the standard gauge beginner sweater sleeve. You need to watch these videos in order because I'm referring to the previous videos as I go. The first thing I'm going to do is cast on the mock ribbing hem waist yarn, and I do that exactly like I did the back and the front. The waist yarn's in, the ravel cord's in. One thing to mention on the sleeve, and remember, is that the mock ribbing on the sleeve is 3 tensions higher than that of the garment. So since I've been using tension 8 to get my gauge, I'm going to go all the way down to tension 5 and knit my 10 rows twice, so 20 rows for a mock rib hem. Here's my mock rib hem. It's going to be 20 rows, so I need to pick it up right here, and then I'll pull the waist yarn off. I'll pick up just a couple of stitches, and then I'll turn the camera off and race ahead so that the video isn't too terribly long. As you can see, again, I'm picking up a stitch and putting it on the left of the pair in work, and then I'm picking up a stitch and putting it on the needle that's not in work. In this way, I fill in the empty needles going across the knitting machine, and I create the mock ribbing hem. The hem is picked up. I've hung 2 claw weights on. I need to set the row counter to 0, 0, 0, and I need to set the machine tension, this is very important, back up to 8 because the cuff is smaller than the arm. Then the instructions say to knit 19 rows, now that will be different for a different size, and then do an increase on each side. So I'm going to knit 19 rows and do an increase. Okay, the ravel cord's out, the waist yarn just falls off. A lot better if there's a claw weight. And show you how to do a full fashion increase 2 stitches from the edge. So I'm using the 2-prong transfer tool. I'm getting the 2 stitches at the edge onto the tool, moving over by 1, popping them onto needles, and then I have an empty needle which will make a hole, and we don't want a hole. So I pick up the heel of the stitch inside, and I think what I'll do is zoom way in to make that a little bit more visible. There I am on the heel of the stitch to the side, and I'm just picking that up. And let me scoot over to the other side, and I'll do an increase on the other side. Now it was 1 increase on each side every 19 rows 4 times. So altogether we're going to have 8 more stitches than when we started after these 4 increases are done. And I'm just trying to catch the heel of the stitch, and I've got it. And let me put that on the empty needle. So that's how the increase is done. And then I'm going to go ahead and knit another 19 rows and another increase, and I'll do that until I have 4 increases, 1 on each side each time I do it. I have just come to the place where I do the 4th increase, and my instructions for my size were to do an increase on each side every 19 rows 4 times. Now, you should always have a strategy when you're knitting so that you can keep your place if telephone rings or someone comes and interrupts you. So, one of the things I will often do is make myself a little cheat sheet and jot down the row numbers where I have to do increases or decreases or do something special. Another thing to think about is that according to the directions, I should at this point be at row counter number 76. And then the directions tell me for my size to knit to row 80 without increasing or decreasing. Knit plain to row 80. 77, 78, 79, 80. Then, very much like the back, the raglan shaping is to bind off 4 stitches at each end at the beginning of each of the next 2 rows. So when I say each end, I mean I'm going to get this end when I do this next row, and I'll get the next end, the other end, when I come back. So that's 1 bound off. That's 2 bound off. Three bound off. Oftentimes, right after I bind off an armhole, just at the beginning of the armhole shaping, that is the perfect place to put a weight. If I put a weight here, it'll hold this little tab down and out of my way. It'll also put a little bit of pull on the raglan shaping I'm about to do. So I knit to the other side, and I bind off 4 on the other side. Do the double decrease by picking up the last 3 stitches onto the transfer tool, and then moving over by 2 whole needles and putting them down so that I have 2, 2, and 1 on the last needle. Same procedure on the other side. And I will do that until I have just a few stitches left, and until I'm down to 1 weight, and then I'll go back on camera and show the last little bit. Here I am approaching the very top of the sleeve. I'm down to 6 stitches. And I'm going to do my double decreases the same way, although it's going to be a little odd. So that got me down to 4. What I'll do is I'll move the 2 edges in. You just have to be creative at the very end so that you get them all piled up. Because you're going from 2 stitches, from 6 stitches to 2 stitches at the top of the sleeve. And then, as absurd as it seems, you can either take this off on a safety pin, which would be a little less absurd, but I'm taking it off on waste yarn, so it's going to look a little silly, this tiny strip of waste yarn at the top. Looks almost like I did a little bit of cord there, doesn't it? And I'm going to cut the yarn and hold up the sleeve. I only had 1 weight on it because it was really getting narrow toward the top. And this is a little kid's size 2 sleeve. Not terribly big. Let me spread it out on the gate pegs. Here's the point. Down here, here's the cuff. I'm going to do the same thing with the cuff as I did with the other pieces of the garment. I'm running a regular sturdy metal knitting needle into it, and I'm just going to pull it down very firmly so that as the stitches set, they don't set too spread out. So that's how that looks. I'll even fold it in half, and you can imagine that as it'll be sewn into the garment. You make the second sleeve exactly like the first.